As most people who've been watching this channel will know by now, I'm somebody who I actually have a pretty positive outlook on the Chicago Bulls' upcoming season, and I think that they could do some things to surprise some of the doubters. Now, I think there is a cap on that, but on today's episode, I want to talk about two other key components to the Chicago Bulls team that could help determine how much better they can be this year. We'll talk about all that, plus dive a little bit into the mailbag and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all. And I have two things to look at for the Chicago Bulls that are going to help determine just how good this team could be this year. Now, I don't think even in me and my most optimistic, right? I still think this team is going to, even if they do finish at 500 or above, if they do somehow make it into the actual playoffs, you're going to find it, a bit of a struggle to get further and get outside the first round of the playoffs for sure, right? But it's all about the growth and making the necessarily, the progressive steps, right? And for the Bulls to be a legitimate better team, because a lot of people ask, and I think it's a fair question that people ask, what exactly or how exactly can this team be better than last year, right? Some of the things that I point to is the fact that Ayo wasn't healthy at the end of last year. He's one of our only true two-way players on the Chicago Bulls, right, as far as the upside that he has there. I think you added another defendant in Isaac Okoro, who could be an efficient three-point shooter for you as well. And then also just the growth of this team coming into the season, playing that new style that they've established late last year. A key part of that style is going to be Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey is so important to what the Bulls do, right? I think people forget that. People look at just the raw box score numbers. And, while I am a very analytical person, I go into the weeds of some of the advanced analytics and metrics and things like that. When you look at Josh Giddey and his ability to not only push the pace by getting the rebounds that he gets, but also the way that he creates as well in the fast break, you put the proper shooters around Josh Giddey with his creativity, and he's going to get them to take a step up. That's why, a lot of people talk about Modest taking a step as a shooter and how much that can help this team. And, I talked about Modest as well being one of the players, him and Ayo, that I'm really looking to attack the basket more as well when they're in the game and hopefully get to the free throw line as well, right? But, of course, Josh Giddey, Kobe White coming in as the number one scorer. It's important that he takes a step up in his game as well. But these are things that we've talked really heavily about and ad nauseum about, right? But but two other factors for this team are going to matter hugely in just how good they can be. Now, the Chicago Bulls finished the last couple of months of the season, basically the last 20, 25 games-ish, with a defensive rating of 12. They finished the season overall at a defensive rating of 19, that a defensive rating of 22 through the first three and a half months of the season. So that's how you look at that, right? So the Bulls' defense, how much better can the Bulls be defensively, is one of the most important questions that we can have for this team this year, because I think that that's going to be the thing. With how high-powered the Bulls' offense can be, the Bulls' defense doesn't need to be great, right? I think we've seen that through a lot of teams in this league. If you have a highly efficient offense, which we do have another video on that, on how the Bulls' offense can become truly elite. But if you have a really, really good offense, your defense, if it can hover around 15, 16, 17, right? So middle of the pack to lower middle of the pack. If the Bulls can do that, then that's one of the key things for this Bulls. I mean, I think when you look at the Bulls taking a step defensively this season, how much better can they be than what they were throughout the majority of the season last year? And there's some good signs in that. Again, finishing the season 12th in defensive rating, and that was still with missing Ayo throughout most of those games. It was still with missing Ayo Dosunmu. So now you look at, you're adding Ayo back, you're adding Isaac Okoro, and with Josh Giddey and Kobe not being a strong defensive backcourt, nobody's going to say that. We have Nikola Vucevic, who isn't a strong rim protector to kind of overcome some of their weak perimeter defense. A lot of the heavy lifting defensively for this team is going to come down on the perimeter. It's going to come down to Ayo Dosunmu and Isaac Okoro. How legit are they defensively? And I think both these players who already have shown their ability to guard multiple positions, right? Ayo can guard ones, twos, and threes. Isaac Okoro, I think, can guard twos and threes, maybe some fours as well. I think he's going to be called on to do that a lot also. But the versatility in those guys defensively is going to be a key factor. And you still got to play solid team defense, right? In no way am I saying all the defense should just hang on those two players. No, you still need to play. One of the aspects that Josh Giddey did take a step in defensively last year was defense in the paint on guards, right? He actually became a really good defender on paint, in the paint on guards, and in the mid-range on guards. He actually became pretty good as far as the defensive field goal percentage that he allowed there. Kobe White, which most people don't really look at, but he took a step as an on-ball defender. He still gets blown up in pick-and-roll defense. I don't know if that really helps him. You know, people say the short arms and things. That didn't really limit him on ball really much defensively at all last year. And that's where it gets to. It's really about the activity and the focus. Now, the question with Kobe comes down to, with him being the number one option offensively, does he still give that level of effort defensively, right? Or how much level effort does he give defensively? I think that comes down to how much of the other players around him also share the load offensively. Josh Giddey finished the season on a 20, almost 10-10 run, right? How many points per game is Josh Giddey giving you? Does Modest take a step offensively? Is Vooch still the consistent player, right? The shooting for Kevin Huerter, if he's in that starting lineup, is going to matter for the Chicago Bulls a lot. So you have to look at those things. Those are going to play a big part into it. But Ayo and Isaac Okoro, much of the heavy lifting defensively, right? And then you look at also Zach Collins and how solid he was as a defender last year, specifically in the stretch, stepping in for, Vooch when he was down as a starter. Zach Collins gave some really good defense. Now, throughout his history and his career, neither Jalen Smith or Zach Collins have been amazing defensive players. They just haven't been. I think Zach Collins is a more solid defender in just on-ball defense in the paint. He's not really a rim protector in the sense of shot blocking, but he can play. He can body somebody up that tries to get to the paint. He can deter guards at times from that penetration as well into the paint. And I think that's going to have to be something that we rely on. But it's really, you're looking at that. Now, if a player like Noah Essengay can get in the game and make a big role, then great. If Patrick Williams earns himself a role this season, great, right? And we'll talk more about those guys later on. Why? Because I want to talk about the bench unit and how it works out too, because I think the bench unit is going to be an important piece of this puzzle overall also. But you got to look at how much better the Bulls can be defensively. And if they can just go up from 19th to 17th, 2 spots, I think that could be the sign. And with the offense, the offense stays its level of potentness that it had at times last year, I think that could be a nice building block for the Chicago Bulls to take that necessary step defensively. Now, we know we need more wing defenders. We're going to need a rim protector at some point to optimize what this team can be defensively. But I do think this team has some things that can help them make a step defensively. And that's really what it's about this year, is making a step defensively, having more healthy players, having players that understand their role. And one player that I don't want to overlook either is Tre Jones. Tre Jones actually played some solid defense. Now, his size gets to him, right? I think Tre is one of those players that is very active defensively, but there are times where his size just limits him. But I think that's the thing. But if you can get Kobe and Josh Giddey to both buy into being active defensively, right? Consistently giving that consistent effort, even if it does take a slight hit to their offensive game, because they're both going to still have their opportunities offensively. I think that can drastically help this Bulls team take a needed step defensively next year. And that's what you're looking at for this team, is take that needed step. And if you can take that can help you quite a bit, right? But then the other aspects, and we're going to talk about 2 key aspects for this Bulls team heading into next year that has to take a step up for the Bulls to be consistent, right? And the next is the bench unit. Now, we're still trying to figure out who's exactly going to be in the bench, who's going to be in the rotation, right? And that's a thing that it's really comes down to one position. I think it comes down to threes, right? I mean, it comes down to who plays the three is going to be the big part of that. But when you look at the Bulls bench rotation, some are just set, right? Tre Jones, Zach Collins as your backup point guard and backup center have clear roles. Ayo Dosunmu and Isaac Okoro, and we're assuming here that Kevin Huerter is the starter, those 2 guys as well have pretty defined roles as well. Isaac Okoro's defense. I don't mean this derogatorily, right? I mean the sense that if Isaac Okoro does start, it's going to be the Keith Bogans type starter. And I don't mean that he's a better player than Keith Bogans, but I mean that he's there to focus on defense and to hit open shots. That's all he's out there to focus on, right? You're not looking for him to do any type of on-ball creation for you. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like bottom of the league in dribbles, those type of things. But that's what you want for those guys, right? And then Dosunmu is going to be the two-way player coming off the bench, right? He's going to be the player that can do a lot coming off the bench. He can score some, he can defend some, right? And when you look at the bench scoring last year, the Bulls actually weren't bad bench scoring wise. We averaged 36 points per game off the bench, which put us at 14th in the NBA. So that's right in the middle of the pack, right? And again, that was without Io there for large parts last year. That was with, Modest on the bench for some parts, didn't have really a role. He went to the starting lineup, those type of things. I think when you look at this team now and their bench unit, the things are going to be kind of more clear right now. That number doesn't break down the bench scoring average prior to the Zach LaVine trade and after the Zach LaVine trade. It'll be really interesting to see how that balance was, right? But when you have Tre Jones, Zach Collins, Dosunmu, and Isaac Okoro, they all have clear roles. And I think you can make your case that all four of those guys are going to be in the rotation. So that's your 9-man rotation right there, right? And when you look at Tre, his ability to facilitate with not turning the ball over and hit open shots, it gives you a nice balance of what he can do offensively for you, right? We already talked about he gives you effort defensively. Zach Collins, if I'm Billy Donovan, I'm looking at Zach Collins and telling him, listen, I need you to lock in on pick and roll offense because we got the guards that can get you the ball, and I need you giving 125% defensively every single possession. We'll take care of you offensively. We'll make sure you get that and rebound the ball, of course, as all centers need to do. Those two guys have clear roles. Io, two-way player. He's going to have some shots. He's going to have some time to create out in the open court. He's going to also solid rebounder for his position as well. The passing that he has in transition is really good. His finishing around the rim is solid. Isaac Okoro, defense, 3-point shots. So that leaves P. Will, Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, Noah Essengay. Those four players are fighting over minutes, but the benefit that you have of those four players is that they all can play multiple positions. P. Will can play the 3 or the 4. Dalen Terry, the 2 and the 3. Julian Phillips, the 3 and the 4. Noah Essengay, the 3 and the 4, maybe even some small ball 5 at times, depending on how he deals with the NBA physicality, could be there for him also. So there are some, maybe that with Noah Essengay. And when you see bench units that really step up, and I did miss Jalen Smith. Now, while Jalen fell out of the rotation last year, we'll see what happens this year. His shooting ability, it was streaky last year, but his ability to stretch the floor from that power forward or center position, if you play him if you play him at power forward, he played basically exclusively center for the Chicago Bulls. So you have a whole entire bench unit, 5 players now, including Jalen Smith, that all can play multiple positions, that all can do various different things. Dalen and Julian still don't have that kind of defined skill. P. Will is not consistent with it, but he's a player that can hit an open 3 for you, can be a 40% 3-point shooter, be a solid on-ball defender for you. Noah's a rookie. We really don't know exactly what Noah's going to do this year, right? But you have players that are fighting, versatile players that are fighting over that 10th spot in the rotation. And I think that's good because that leaves you more flexibility in how you use the rest of your roster. So with the Bulls having players that can play multiple positions in Dosunmu and Alex Caruso, all the other guys, P. Will, Dalen, Julian, Noah Essengay, Jalen Smith, all can play multiple positions, right? So even though Tre Jones and Zach Collins shape up to be just a point guard and just center for the Chicago Bulls next year, and maybe you could say Tre can line up at the 2 sometimes if he's out there with Kobe or out there with Josh Giddey, who's the 2, who's the 1, whatever it is. You can play with either guard, though. That you potentially have a bench unit. Now, how good that bench unit could be, they're going to have to prove, but you have a bench unit that covers a multitude of things. You have your offensive guys. You have your even if Kevin Huerter does get into has the starting position, he's coming off the bench. That gives you a shooter coming off the bench, right? So the Bulls bench unit and how well and how consistent they can perform. Because one thing over the last 4 years for the Chicago Bulls is that the bench just hasn't been consistent. Now, one of the reasons why is because we've had injuries, tons of injuries on the bench every single year from different players, whether it's Io, P. Will, when he's in the bench, Alex Caruso over the years when he was here was injured at times, right? So you had that part of it. But if you have a consistent bench unit that can play multiple positions, that can keep up the style of play, and that's one thing that the Bulls always haven't had. The bench unit can keep up the style of play. That's why bringing Tre Jones back once you traded Lonzo was so important. Tre, also a solid rebounder for his position regardless of his size, but the passing and the fast break with him and Dosunmu as players that can lead that fast break, you can keep on your pace up, right? I think Zach Collins showed himself to be solid in that pace as well. We know Jalen can play that. So you can keep up that pace of play, and you may even have more consistent defense coming off your bench unit as well. So if that bench unit for the Chicago Bulls can really make a step next year, that's where you're looking at. So again, the two aspects of this team that I'm looking forward to improve the most. How much better can we be defensively, right? That is a huge question. If we can be closer to how we finished the season defensively, and I'm just saying, like, again, I'm saying 17th is the mark. If we can be 7th in defensive rating next year, I said 17th in defensive rating next year, I think with our offense, we're going to be in a pretty good spot. And that bench rotation is going to be key, especially for the pace that we play. It means that you're going to have a lot of players checking in and out to stay fresh. Billy Donovan's already talked about how they use that pace to kind of wear teams down. And to do that, you need your bench unit to keep that up. And if the bench unit is able to do that, I think you can find yourself a pretty solid season for the Chicago Bulls coming up. So let me know what you guys think about that down below. What are some aspects you're looking for this team that can improve and that can have you feeling better about where this team could be next season? Let me know that down below. All right, let's get into the mailbag. We only got 2 voicemails for today. The first one that we have, this one's from Shay.
What's up, Hayes? I just saw your video about Walker Kessler, and you said, should we get him, purchase him, make a run for him in free agency, or should we make a run for him during this upcoming season? I'm here to tell you, maybe that might be our biggest free agent acquisition. Maybe that might be what AK is talking about when he's talking about planning for the summer of 2026. Because remember, he did want to make a big splash. At first, I thought he was going to go for Bam Adebayo, but I see that Bam Adebayo has a couple more years left on his contract. So I think Walker Kessler could be a gem for him to get in the next off season, because the way I see it, I don't think that the Utah Jazz are going to want that Portland pick. But I do believe that they are going to want some type of young asset. And I don't know if you want to necessarily give the door a state gauge just yet, because I don't think that they're going to want anybody like a Dalen Terry or Julian Phillips. And I know for a fact AK is already sold or making the core pieces Modest, Kobe White, and Josh Giddey and Dosunmu. So I don't think that, well, unless Patrick Williams is part of the deal, but I don't think they want his ass, or maybe they do. Who knows? Utah is crazy, just like a lot of franchises. But what I would do, I would probably, I wouldn't even wait till the summer. I'd try to get him during the season, because with Kobe White and Dosunmu, with the money that they might command, you don't know what could happen. I mean, I know Walker Kessler is going to be a free agent as well, but you could get him on a reasonable deal compared to just, because you also have to worry about paying Ayo and Kobe. And I know people going to say, oh, we got the money. They got the money, because I was saying you talk a lot about the cap space, but you don't know how much money Walker Kessler is going to demand. So you might want to see if you could get him and try to seal him up as fast as you can. That's just my opinion. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
First of all, you said purchase him? Purchase him? My boy, slavery has been abolished for hundreds of years, bro. And even if it wasn't, Walker Kessler doesn't fit the profile. That was a crazy joke. But with that said, I'll say this. Walker Kessler is, I don't use the word perfect very lightly. But when you look at what he does, solid basketball IQ, solid passer, really good defensive IQ as well. We talked about his rim and paint defense, both of those things. Like, those are different things, but they're different ways to kind of guard the rim. Excellent. He can switch on the guards. Some. Now, you don't want to do it a lot, but he can do that, and you can stay with him, especially if they're driving, right? So Walker Kessler is about as near as a perfect player. This is why, imagine had we drafted him instead of Dalen Terry, right? And he's a great fit for this team. Now, if it comes down to restricted free agency, I do think if the Bulls wait to restricted free agency, they should put in an offer for Walker Kessler. Whether it's a restricted free agent offer, you sign him to an offer sheet, or you call up the Utah Jazz and try to work out a signing trade. I think that's it. Now, if the Bulls want to try to get him in the season, which, Walker Kessler was available last year, people didn't bite. Reportedly, he's going to be available this year too. Now, some of the rumors surrounding is that the Utah Jazz are looking for multiple first-round picks. And that sounds like something Danny Ainge would want, right? But I do think if the market does end up faltering for that, maybe you can slide in there and offer 1 first-round pick for it, right? I don't think making the call should be bad, but the Bulls, if he does go to restricted free agency, the Bulls should be one of the first teams that are willing to meet with him. And I've said it before, if the Bulls want to find a center in free agency next year, we're really either looking at Mark Williams as an unrestricted free agent, or you're looking at a number of players that are going to be restricted free agents at the center market next year. And Walker Kessler is one of those guys. And I think the Bulls should be willing to put in an offer sheet for him. So we'll see what's going to happen there. If the Bulls can do it, great. If they don't, we'll see that as well. So overall, I like Walker Kessler's potential of being on this team. I think he offers a lot of what this team needs, and I think he can help this team out. That's just what I think. You guys can let me know how you feel down below. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one is talking about the Walker Kessler trade, but from a different perspective. This one's from Reggie.
Hey, this is Logan just calling in after listening to you and Pat discuss a possible trade that the Bulls can make, and one of the names I came up with was Walker Kessler. And while I don't hate the man's playing style, the fact that you're going to be put in the same position as you are with guys like Diddy, Ion Kobe, with him being on the last year of his contract, makes me feel a sort of type of way about it. Like, I'm not going to deny the man's defense, but for a more traditional center that he is, I would like for him to get the ball and, you know, when he gets his hand on the ball, try to do something with it, get to the foul line. And then I saw that he only takes like 4 free throws a game, and he's barely hitting 50% of those. And in this Bulls offense, you know, they take a lot of threes. They also are going to use him down low to start tension away from guys. And if he can't, you know, make any moves to the basket, and if he gets fouled and they put him on the line and he can't make his free throws, he's going to probably have to be taken out in the fourth quarter, which is going to hurt the Bulls considerably defensively. So instead of Kessler, I thought about Nick Claxton, but, you know, Claxton's free throws and free throw attempts are roughly the same as Kessler. So then I actually had to look up someone that we all heard may have been on the trading block last year, and that was Missi from the Pelicans, who's also a good shot blocker, who, even though his offense isn't exactly what we would like it to be, he's a good defender. He can run the court. And the Pelicans just drafted Derek Queen. So maybe the Pelicans plan on putting them both on the court at the same time, or maybe they're planning on replacing Missi. I'm not 100% sure. But if they do, the Pelicans are probably going to ask for 2 first-round picks, which I wouldn't exactly say no to it, especially since he's still on his rookie deal. He still got like 3 years of team control left. So what do you think about trading Jalen Smith, the first round this year or next year, and the first round from the Portland Trail Blazers for Yves Missi? Go ahead, tell me your opinion. Thanks.
Listen, not a bad point. I want to be clear there. What you pointed out there is not a bad point in regards to trading for him and him immediately being a restricted free agent. But I think it's a little different than the Josh Giddey situation. Josh Giddey, part of the reason why his restricted free agency went the way that it did is because he wasn't on the team. It was that part. But then also, you got to remember, Josh Giddey didn't even play point guard most of his time being there for the OKC Thunder. Walker Kessler's in a much different position. He's only played center. His role hasn't drastically changed his first 4 years in the league. And he's a guy that you know exactly what he's done. He's done it already consistently. With Josh Giddey, he didn't do what you need him to do consistently, but it wasn't his fault with the OKC Thunder because his role wasn't playing the point guard, the best role suited for him, right? So with Walker Kessler, it's a little bit different there. So, you know, and so I think that's where you run your difference at than it being compared to like Kobe and Josh Giddey. I don't think it's the same there. Now, as far as Yves Missi, right? And Yves Missi is a player that I was very, very interested in last year's draft. But I do think this, like you said, that he's available I don't know if I believe that. Right now, I know that I'm not saying that you're wrong because there was those reports, right? But I think when you look at a player in Missi who stepped up as every month of the season went on, he got better and better, right? This is a Pelicans team that really is right now in flux. I don't see them sending off young talent at this point in time, even though they did draft Derek Queen. I still don't personally see that, right? And I think Walker Kessler is a better on-ball defender than Yves Missi. Yves Missi does shape up to be a rim protector for sure. Like, I think he's going to have that upside. I have no doubt that he's going to be a solid rim protector. But even then, let's keep in mind, his block rate is not nearly what Walker Kessler does, not even remotely close to that. So I get it that he brings some of the same things, 1.3 blocks, but like, again, he's not nearly the shot blocker than Walker Kessler is. He's not nearly the on-ball defender that Walker Kessler is either. Now, Yves Missi only has 1 year. Can he grow into that player? Possibly. I mean, if the Bulls wanted to, if they made a move for Yves Missi, I wouldn't be mad at that either. It would show a level of aggressiveness. It would fit the timeline as far as it would put you another player more on Modest's timeline, right? So then you have Modest, you have Noah Essengate, and you have Yves Missi, all these young 19, 21, 22-year-old players, right? That can grow and develop together. And the benefit of that is that then they can grow by playing together, and then they'll understand how that fit together will be something that they are growing with, right? So I wouldn't be mad at that. I wouldn't be mad at a player like Yves Missi. I just think Walker Kessler is better as it stands right now. But as you said, he'll be more expensive as well. So that's something you also have to look at. So, but great point, great counterpoint there. I don't believe that he's going to be as available as rumored though, but we shall see. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.